So, yeah, when you ask me for a topic to discuss or to bring up for the call, um, my mind went to the basics.
Yeah.
Since I'm still new in the game, I figure the basics is what I'm interested in the most. Like, but then I thought about it more, and it got weird. And but let's try to figure it out. Are there basics? Could we even separate? I don't know, some parameters and say these are the basics of symbol smithing or the rules of symbol smithing, and yeah.
Yeah. I would like, yeah. I would say there are a few basic things that they're kind of the first things you learn, but they're not really as basic as they seem in the beginning because there's always things that you have to know about them. But it's things like working on the top versus on the bottom, or like onto a curve versus into a curve.
Yeah.
Um, Working on just understanding that when you raise an area or push an area up, all the areas around it are going to fall around it. And like if you imagine like a cluster hammering or something like that,
Mm.
you push one part up, everything else around it wants to go down. Um, so those are kind of just some of the first things that I think people need to understand about it. And there's so many caveats to that. So like the rules are not really super steadfast all the time, but those are kind of the basic things. Like, are you working on top of a curve? Are you working underneath a curve?
Mm.
Where are you trying to get curvature versus flatten it out? Are so remote working remotely, as
Yeah.
Dave Collingwood says, one aspect of the cymbal affecting everything else about it. Um, and those are like that like most of what I think about is kind of those two things when I'm working on a cymbal.
Yeah. This is um yeah, you're talking kind of yeah, of the rules of what you actually do while hammering,
Yeah,
like because those things make a big difference.
yeah,
I was also thinking about just looking at the whole thing without using any hammers. What are the, not the work itself, but things like thickness or shape, bell size, bell shape, bell transition, lathing, like the things you could still see when looking at a finished cymbal,
yeah,
but not even going as far as to say how you get there, but
right.
just the things themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What are the aspects of the cymbal that create the sound that you're
Exact.
for?
Yeah, exactly. What would those things be?
Like
Um,
you mentioned a lot of them right there. The bell transition, the size and shape of the bell, the basic kind of curvature.
the
Um,
body shape
yeah,
of the symbol itself.
exactly. Yeah,
Um,
the thing that I always think about that has made the biggest difference for me is that no, like nothing about a cymbal exists in a vacuum, if you know what I mean. Every single aspect of the cymbal is affecting something else about it. So, excuse me, like when you talk about curvature or thickness or distribution of the weight, is it thinner towards the edge or all that stuff?
mm,
No aspect of that is going to affect only one part of the sound. Like, say you want a cymbal to be lower in pitch. Well, there's about 10 ways that you could do that,
yeah.
but what else about the cymbal are you trying to preserve while lowering the pitch? Do you still want it to have a good stick definition, or do you want
Mm,
it wilder and wash out easier? Do you want it to maintain a high profile? Do you want the bell to be bigger or smaller? Like there's so many different things that affect that one aspect of the sound that you have to really dig into what else about the cymbal you want to change or not change, and then that'll kind of guide you which way you want to go.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I've thought about kind of since the beginning, and how to balance all those aspects.
Mm. Yeah, it's a bummer in a way
It,
because it doesn't allow us to look at individual things.
yeah,
Yeah, just what you said. You change one thing, it's always in relation to another thing.
yeah,
The parameters that would be probably the most testable in a way would be those that you do last in the process. So
mm,
let's say you have a finished or almost finished cymbal, and you decide to do some additional lathing and not even taking away a lot of weight, but you try to figure out how different bits and different grooves and all the how this is working. So you could hear the cymbal, then do a little bit of that, and then listen back to it. And that would be, you would still change other, it would still change other parameters, but you at least have a kind of a A/B situation.
yeah,
But the worst thing would be like the opposite, like bell. How will I ever know what's up with the bell? Because this is early in the process. I'm starting with the bell, shaping the bell, and then the whole cymbal is built around that.
yeah,
So if I want to A/B different bell sizes or bell shapes, it's not even possible. I mean, I had to make hundreds and thousands of cymbals just to make sure I have every possible
yeah,
outline of different values of every parameter, and it's not possible.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's frustrating.
when you're fundamental parts of the cymbal that need to be established really early in the process, it's you can't really, unless you have like, like let's say you're a big company and you're doing things with machines, like that's the
Yeah,
closest you get to being like, okay, we're gonna make whatever series ride, but we're gonna use a bell that's half the size, and the rest of
yeah,
the process is going to be exactly the same. We're going
yeah,
to, so that's the closest you can get. But even then, it's tough because even machine made cymbals have differences within
yeah,
them. So you can't really, there's no perfect way to do that. And even with the lathing, like you mentioned before, trying out different bits and whatever it is, you still have the question of, did you take the weight off the top or the bottom? How much
mm,
pressure did you put down?
yeah,
All that kind of stuff that has an effect, like um, on your finished product. So like even something as, like, if we're talking really basically just about you have your cymbal and you want to do like a pin lathe or something and see how it changes the sound,
yeah,
you immediately you have like three options. Just on that one thing, you can do a pin lathe just on the top, you can do a pin lathe just on the bottom, or you can do both. And then there's all the different stuff within there, like pressure. You can do it on both sides, but you can do the bottom really lightly and the top really hard, or
mm,
vice versa. And you're kind of loosening off the cymbal as well, which affects the shape. It affects the distribution of the curvature as well, depending on whether are you starting from the bell and going outwards, or are you starting
yeah,
from the outside and going in. Like
yeah.
every single,
How far apart, and
yeah,
is it interlaced or just one? It's never ending. It goes deeper and deeper, and it spreads out more. Even simple thing like that. I was thinking of a example like, and I mentioned lathing, and now I realized, yeah, no, it's just one of those parameters. It always ends up going down and spreading out into a multitude of options, which is just nuts. but it's also very fun and amazing and wonderful. But it's a hard thing to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's part of what makes it an art form as well as everything else. You have no two cymbals you ever make are going to be the same because you're never going
mm,
to make a hammer the same way twice. You're never going to move at the exact same speed on the lathe and all. There's never anything when you're working by hand that's going to be identical. So
yeah.
yeah, it's awesome.
Um, I was thinking about pressed bells, and we could maybe bring this into the discussion because sometimes I feel like I'm missing out on pressed bells
Mhm.
because that would be kind of a way to have one parameter less in a way, given that the bell that they press it in a similar way. Um, and I could focus more on the rest of the symbol.
Yeah,
Like if I would not even retouch the pressed bell, but really just leave it as is or lathe it in the same way. What's your experiences with that? Are they coming in the same if you like order a pressed bell on a same size?
yeah. That like they're very slightly different sometimes. Like they might one of them might be just a hair flatter or just a little bit higher and rounder, but they're when I order the bell size and shape that I want from the company, it's always like 99% there. They're
Okay.
pretty much the same. The thing with pressed bells is first off, like it's just a lot less work, which is
Mm.
nice. And I've been thinking lately about pressed bells versus hand formed bells and everything. You get a lot more you get a lot more control of the shape with a hand formed bell, but there's also a lot more that can go wrong. There's you get less projection and it builds a lot of complexity into the rest of the cymbal. So if you're going for something that has a cleaner sound,
Mm.
it's more difficult to get with a hand formed bell because your ground zero where you're starting from is already layered with hand hammering all the way through the whole thing, just like the rest of the cymbal is. So you end
Mm.
up with a darker sound to begin with, which sometimes is what you want.
You mean
Um,
darker, the whole cymbal sound?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And the thing that I like about hand form bells is that you don't have to do quite as much work to get a high profile because you have your blank starting here, and then I think we talked about this last time where we have our cymbal that already has a little bit of curvature, and
Yeah.
you let's say the cymbal's curved up this way, you would put the bell in this way
Yeah.
rather than if it's curved this way and do it because that just gives you twisting and gives you a whole lot of issues.
Yeah.
But like what I was talking about before of how when you put in like cluster hammering or really any kind of shape hammering into one specific area, the areas around it are going to go down.
Mm.
So you have the cymbal that's I'll try to do it like this. It's better like that. The cymbal that's kind of slightly curved this way, the flat blank, and then you start pushing a lot of shape right here into this area. This goes up, and the area around it starts to go down.
Yeah.
So start to work with a hand formed bell. By the time you're finished the bell and you can flip it back the other way, you already have like this much curvature into the top of the cymbal because you worked on it this way, you pushed this
Mm.
up, it pushed the surrounding area down, and then when you flip it, it ends up like that.
Yeah.
So you already have a little bit of a profile when you haven't done any hammering to the body yet, which I like because I like a high profile cymbal and it gives you more space to work with when you're figuring that stuff out. And if you want more curvature towards the edge, it gives you more area that you can push more curvature into the edge and kind of
Mm.
you're not working with something flat already that's going to dip if you push more area into the
Hmm.
outsides of the towards the edge. So there's a lot of benefits to working with a hand form bell, but there's just a certain type of quality to the sound that's much harder to get because you're working with something that that's complex all the way down to its foundation.
Mm.
And it adds an extra, half hour to an hour of work depending on how big the bell is, and that's all
Mhm.
just hammering in the same spot. There's risks if you're using a thinner blank, of course, and
Yeah.
that's kind of my take on it. But I like to work. I like to balance it out a lot because a lot of people like both pressed bells
Mm.
and hand form bells. So I like to balance it out and just really try to get both bases covered. And sometimes I get the itch to make hand form bells, and then
Yeah.
I'll order a bunch of flat blanks, and then by the time I've made the sixth or seventh cymbal with a hand form bell, I'm like, man, this is so tiring, and I just want to go back to pressed bells for a bit. So I always
Yeah.
try to bounce back and forth like that.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's also more traditional. We could argue that a pressed bell is the traditional bell,
Yeah.
and hand formed bells are is just a new fancy things we are doing, but it
These
wasn't really there before in
yeah,
that
I read
amount, or
something
yeah.
I read something about the Paiste factory, like back in the 50s when they were starting, they would do some bells hand formed because they didn't have machinery yet.
Hmm.
So I don't know if that's true, but that is something that I
Yeah.
heard. But also, like I've been playing these cymbals here for the last couple days. Right? Drop the wing nut, obviously. So this old K here, I don't know if you may be able to see it. You can see how raised up the transit. There's basically no transition at all.
Yeah.
It's
Very
like
smooth.
very, very smooth. Whereas with most of the modern machinery pressed bells that we get, they have this flat surface, and then there's the impression
Counterform.
bell underneath. So just the modern machinery that people use to give you a pressed bell, it gives you a really hard transition that you're starting with.
Hmm.
Whereas with a hand form bell, you have a lot more control over how smooth or sharp the transition is. So that's something I really like about the hand form bells as well. And when I play the old Ks, especially these new stamps that I have, they all have a really, really smooth transition.
Hmm.
And it's kind of a perfect halfway house because the bells were pressed with the guy swinging the big
Yeah.
everything, but they didn't have the modern machine with the perfectly round uh, impression that they
Yeah.
push. It gives you, so you have the you have the benefit of having a pressed bell because the bell was made in one swift motion, and then you can add complexity after. But you also have the benefit of them not using a perfectly machined mold that gives you the same perfect thing every time with a really hard transition
Hmm.
that might pigeonhole your sound a little bit. So there's there's both worlds there, and I now like thinking about hand form bells a lot. Like in certain aspects of it, that can get you closer to that old sound than the modern machinery can. But then there's certain aspects of the modern machinery that can get you closer because some of the
Yeah.
old Ks especially have really high and really round bells, and you don't want to be hammering for an hour and a half to try to get a really, really high and round bell that still has the thickness available for you to lathe it and manipulate it after the fact. So
Yeah.
it's really I've really been thinking about pressed versus hand formed, and I've kind of arrived at the same place. Like I'm just gonna do both, and whatever I'm
Yeah.
feeling that the sound needs at that moment, I just kind of choose that one. But there's a lot. It's just I just keep kind of going round and round.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Yeah, I don't know why I subscribe to hand-formed bells only.
Mhm.
I think it was like I want to be able to make different sized bells like any given time.
Yeah,
But it's yeah, it's I think I kind of miss out. Maybe I'll do some pressed bells later. For now, I stay with what I'm doing.
Well,
It's just too interesting to hammer those bells. It's just a crazy universe in itself, really.
it's really satisfying too to
Yeah,
work on the hammer,
yeah,
really seeing it grow right there in real time. You get that
yeah,
small. Yeah, I totally get it. Like, I mean, the sounds that you get are they speak for themselves. So I don't think you have to really change anything unless you want to pursue a different vein just out of your own interest. So I mean, that's a good sign.
yeah. Thanks. Same to you. Although I don't know which one are pressed in your case. Sometimes I may not able to
Mm-hmm.
see it.
I,
So, but it doesn't really matter. And a funny thing is also, I think the guys with more experience than us, like Paul Francis or Michael Paiste, they do mostly pressed bells, I think, with some exceptions.
yeah, like yeah,
And
Paul
it's
talking about it too, and he's saying like he can do a pressed bell if somebody asks for it, and he's done them in the past, and I'm sure Michael has done them as well. But they just kind of, I think it's just what they know, having worked at the factories for as many years as they have. That's
yeah,
the way they like to work.
yeah. Michael didn't do a lot of hand formed bells, and I think it was like driven by I want to say fear, fear of overhammering.
Yeah,
He's I can feel it when he's around. It's like, do we need more hammering? Isn't it wouldn't this like shift it to be harsher in tone? Isn't it the time to stop now? It's very cautious about not overhammering the bronze, and
yeah,
I find that to be very true in especially in bells. I've made hand formed bells which looked hand formed and wonderful, and you would think I just get a note that we're running out of time. We probably have to reschedule.
oh
It's only I think 40 minutes, but we can just hang up and try again.
yeah, yeah.
And I think we're rolling
Oh,
again.
perfect. You remember where we left off?
Yeah, I think I was talking about hand-formed bells and how I made some of those looking very nice and handmade and um, but brutally harsh in sound because of the overhammering that can so easily happen when you aim for a certain shape.
Hmm.
Um, I had uh, things happening like I almost had the shape. I changed a little bit. I then had to rehammer everything and change another thing. I was back to where I was before, but just with more hammering
Yeah,
and so on. And in the end, it's thinned out and very hard. Uh, we always have to remember that hammering is hardening the bronze, and it's really very easy, I think, to make a hand-formed bell that is harsh sounding.
yes,
It's not the good sound of a bell is not for free. It's not that you just have to make it by hand and it sounds great.
yeah,
It's really
yeah,
not like that.
yeah. There's a lot of work that goes into it, and kind of because you have an an imperfect shape mixed with really dense and heavy hammering, so you get natural complexity with the pitch inconsistencies that can kind of come with the bumpy shape.
Mm.
So if you want to make something that's really nice and more kind of more clean and smooth sounding, then you really have to go over it with a fine tooth comb and nail out all those spots. Which it just depends on what you're going for.
Mm.
Um, but the it can really, yeah, like you said, it can go downhill pretty quickly with a hand form bell just because you're really working in the same spot over and over.
Yeah.
Which is why I like to on my bells, I don't really I try to get the shape that I'm going for without going over any spot more than like 3 times.
Mm.
When I do that, like I start with pushing up. It's tough to here. Let me see if I can draw this. It'd be a lot easier.
You're starting on the transition in, right?
Not always.
Okay.
Most of the time, actually, I start from the top and move outwards because I usually want height, and then I'll kind of move towards the edge and give it roundness. So
Mm.
I'll do my best. I'm not a very good artist here, but I'll try. So there's our bell, and that's where our center hole would be.
Yeah.
So I'll usually come a little bit out and kind of
And
move my
in.
move my way
Ah, okay.
inwards,
Yeah.
and then I'll move out almost towards the transition and then go over that.
Yeah.
But then that gives you kind of a pointy shape to begin
Yeah.
with. So then I'll move to the transition, not quite all the way at the transition, and I'll move in maybe about 3/4 of the way. So I'll
Yeah.
stop about there
Yeah.
where I'm at. If you can, I hope this makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is some extra work done on the sides
Yeah,
in
and I'm
that
making it
last
so
round. Yeah.
like when you look at it from the side in the first steps, you end up with something kind of volcano-ish like
Yeah.
that.
Triangular.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
when I move to the next step, this part here is being moved outwards, and like we talked about before with the remote influence, it starts to push that top part down.
Yeah.
So then I'm pushing the edges outwards while flattening out that part. So that's going down, that's going up, and it
Yeah.
creates kind of a perfect circle without me having to overlay the whole thing more than 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
It just depends on how much height I want to get from the whole thing.
Mm.
I hope I wasn't too close to the mic too. That might have gotten really loud.
No, all good. All good.
But yeah, that's kind of the way I usually think about it. I can try to achieve the shape I want out of the bell without overlapping anything too much and letting the physics of the whole thing just kind of
Yeah.
naturally round out the shape. And then I'll also do some raising on top as well in
Mm.
a couple of rounds, or maybe right at the beginning and then at the last step, just to kind of accentuate the strength of it
Yeah.
and
Like
give it a little
finalize
bit
it.
more, yeah, and give it some more strength so it can handle the lathing too. When you have a bell that's a good shape, but you've only worked from the bottom and then you go and lathe over top of it, a lot of times you can flatten it out depending on how much pressure you're using. So doing a little bit of hammering on top of the bell afterwards gives it that strength that it can handle the lathing.
Mm. That's interesting. I sometimes like go the other way of not hammering on top,
Mhm.
but doing a lot of top lathing in order to, or trying to give some strength to the bell by lathing. But
Right.
it's true if the sides like close to the transition are already not steep but shallow to start with, you can
Yeah.
actually push it further down while lathing on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Something that helps with that too when if you're strengthening the bell with lathing is going from the hole outwards first
mm,
rather than going from the like when you think about how you're, let's say you have a slope like this.
yeah.
If you start pushing here,
All right.
kind of
Yeah,
pushing
it
down,
goes to the side.
exactly the
Strengthens or
opposite is true.
yeah.
So if you have a bell that you're trying to harden with lathing, or even the rest of the cymbal too,
Mm,
I try to balance it out so it kind of keeps the shape that I hammered in while just smoothing it out. But the direction that you move in can flatten and raise certain parts of the cymbal and the bell depending on what you're going for. Because some cymbals
Yeah.
do have a pointier bell and they sound kind of cool. And then some are really wide and flat. So if
Yeah.
I'm going for something really wide and flat and not too high, then I will start at the transition and just kind of move inwards, overlaying 2 or 3 times. So I get kind of a hard line there, but then the bell kind of looks like that. It's
Yeah.
so it
But
really, really depends. And with hand form, you get that power.
yeah. But are you basically saying if you have a like a rather flat bell and you would lathe from outside in that you could end up back in a triangular shape?
Not it would move it in that direction, but it wouldn't change it into a triangular shape completely. It would just kind of see it might in that case make it a little bit better because it's the opposite of what I was saying before,
Hmm.
where let's say your transition is here and you built up a lot here and it's kind of high at the edge and flat there. You could push it to the point where it becomes nice and circular,
But
but just
strong.
but strong and just a little bit lower of a shape. Because if you
Hmm.
start from the top the way I usually do and kind of move outwards, you end up with something pointy that has a lot of height, and then you flatten it out, but it still has a lot of height. So if you start from
Yeah.
the edge, if you want your end product to have something lower, you can start from the edge, build up the edge, and then move in that way. And you're creating that roundness while not
Hmm.
starting with something that's so high.
But starting with an already pretty rounded bell.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
I hope all that's true.
It,
It's just my
it makes
experience.
sense. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I thought of it like so hammering a bell from the top is totally nice and satisfying, but I have to change my anvil, and it's so comfortable to just work from the underside only in the bell. And
yeah,
I was probably just thinking that it's so small and so extreme in shape that it would be probably fine to just work from the underside and kind of work with that after with lathing and stuff. But I have this recurring it's not a recurring dream, but it's like a recurring idea
yeah,
that I would love to cut out a hand formed bell when the whole cymbal is done, to just cut out at the transition and see what the bell would do.
yeah.
If it
We,
would
we talked about this on our
flip,
last call. Yeah,
yeah, true. How revealing would that be? Like
yeah,
to have a cymbal and you maybe remember, oh, I had to work hard to make it flat. It was a struggle. And then you cut out the bell and the bell would just twist on you. And
yeah,
then I would go, okay, there you have it. Obviously.
yeah.
But I don't know if it's true or if it's um, if the shape of the bell is so small and contained that it's like a, I don't know. I know of the influences of the bell or the influences a bell has on the rest of the cymbal. It's basically,
I think
uh,
I think it would.
yeah,
I think it would.
yeah.
Especially when you look at the transition. That's what, like, whenever I'm doing a hand form bell or really any cymbal, the transition is the part that I think requires the most attention.
Mm,
Because when if you're looking at the bell, it's such a small area that you're thinking, yeah, that's straight, it's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. And then you look and you might see a little bit of a bump in the transition.
yeah,
Then that gets magnified all the way out to the edge to the point where you have something that's pretty flat up there, but then by the end, it's kind of
yeah,
twisted that way.
yeah. It's
So
true.
whenever I'm doing hand form bells, I go in with my newly shaped
Nice.
transition hammer. It's nothing. I mean, we talked about this before too with sharpening lathe bits and stuff, which you were a great help with that. I'm not very tool and mechanical oriented, so this is kind of the best I can do. But this has made my transitions a lot smoother, a lot cleaner. And then after I lathe
You're
them,
you're doing
it
the
gets
initial you're
better.
doing the initial line with that.
I usually do the initial line with my regular hammer just to get everything moving in the
Okay.
right direction. But then I'll go one more with this before I even start the before I even start the bell.
But
And then,
free-handed,
yep,
just
free-handed.
making sure to kind of hit the right spot.
Yep.
Okay.
And
And that's
then
funny.
it makes the transition look a lot better. It makes it a lot cleaner, and makes the whole cymbal just kind of better as well.
I did something similar, but
Oh yeah.
I don't
Oh, there you
use
go.
it, but I shaped this thing. It's even curved.
Yeah.
Um, and I try to use it like this and hammer on top and go around like this and have a super clear,
Oh,
deep transition. But it was, I actually, I broke a blank trying this. You can easily go too far.
yeah. It's
Um,
tough too when you're using both hands with the hammer and you can't control the blank properly. That's happened.
yeah,
I was wanting to get something sharper like that because sometimes when I'm using this part kind of hits the edge of the bell
yeah.
on the transition, but it hasn't really caused me too many issues at this point, so I
Mm.
haven't messed with it a lot. But that kind of hammer would be really good. Have you tried just kind of swinging that hammer?
Yeah, but I'm not. It's too sharp and it's too pointy. You really have to. I could do multiple rounds and somehow, but it would squish the whole thing up.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I forgot about this.
yeah,
And then it's the other thing is of I really stopped to work with any force in the hand when I hammer. I let the hammer like it falls out of my hand like basically almost every time I hit,
oh really?
just to make sure that I'm safe. It's
Right,
just
yeah,
the way I hammer, very loose, and I almost throw the hammer.
yeah,
And this makes it a little harder to be super precise.
yeah,
And even when I do the initial lines, I go around like 3 times. I work in that way, and I kind of um, so my aim is good when I'm working fast and turning and repeating and not thinking about it, but it's not. Um, this is just too small of a point to aim for, and
yeah,
it has a big impact. So if it's wrong, it's bad. But when I work my transition with my ordinary round hammer, there is a little bit of a zone, and 3 rounds for me just evens it out pretty
yeah,
perfectly. But when we're talking like transition and flatness of the transition, a very difficult thing is that our blanks coming in all warped and crazy. Some with some bulges or tension or two states. And then you do this initial line for the bell. And in order to check if this is plain, you have to kind of, if you're lucky, you have a blank that is pretty flat already. And then you
yeah,
can see the transition. If it's, but sometimes it's like you can twist it this way or this way and it tilts, and I just kind of try to find a medium
yeah, for sure.
and start to work outside and maybe come in later again. But once I've hammered the bell itself, I don't feel like working on the transition anymore. I go very close to it, but not really. The transition, I leave it be.
Yeah,
So it's hard to even guarantee a clean start because oftentimes we cannot see it, or it's very hard to decide if it's straight or not.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, I just made a 22 with a blank that was pretty severely warped, and it gave me cymbal still sounds fine, but it gave me a pretty good twist at the end that
Yeah.
I couldn't fix. Um, even though the that was one of those things where I couldn't really fix it, even though the transition and the area up by the bell is nice and straight. But
Mm.
the it was flat, pretty good all around, but then one kind of quadrant of it was bent upwards,
Yeah.
that like pretty intensely. So building curvature into that area required extra hammering, and it overworked that one area and dipped things down and kind of and I it's still a playable, it's still a good sounding cymbal, but it's one of those that was just kind of frustrating because no matter what you do, there's that one zone that just didn't want to cooperate, and it's because of how the blend
Yeah.
came in. Um, so that just is what it is. They're not all going to be perfect.
Yeah.
We're not a big company who can just roll them out, and then if it doesn't come out flat, you just chop them up and throw them back in the oven. We have to work with what we have. So
Yeah, exactly.
it is what it is.
It's a fight, but it's also very fun and it's a nice challenge to work with a warped blank. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, let's go. Let's
yeah.
see what happens.
That's one of the things that I like about thin blanks is that when they're warped, you can usually work with them a little bit better because they're easier to manipulate the shape
Mm,
beforehand. If you have a warped blank that's really heavy, it's like it really wants to stay where it is. Uh,
mm,
but heavier blanks also get warped way less often because they
yeah,
just have strength to hold while they're being rolled.
yeah.
But I just finished watching again your hi hat video that you just posted,
Mm,
which all those hi hats sound amazing. I love them.
thanks.
Number 73, the first one specifically, they had that softness that you were talking about. They had that, like the softness of the sound.
Yeah,
They were a little bit kind of wider and more mellow sounding, which is nice for hats, but they still have, I like hi hats to be mellow, but still have a really nice snap.
yeah,
And a lot of that comes down to the direction of the edge. The edge
yes,
hi hats for me has to kind of be angled downwards, so they're snappy and hitting each other like this rather than pushing the air
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So they're really really nice. And talking about warped hi hats as well, I've done stuff like that in the past, but I was going to revisit it as well because I've had a few people ask me about Storm Series hi hats, like
What is that?
the warped
Ah, your Storm series, but
yeah,
as in hi-hats. Okay.
yeah, hi hat form. So I've been kind of messing around with that idea, and I've got some blanks that I'm going to use for that. So we'll see how it goes. And I wanted to try first and foremost to just get to just kind of transfer the exact build to a set of hi hats and scale everything down, which I hope is going to sound pretty cool. But your video made me think of that because you're talking about hi hats that are softer, that when they're warped, they're not stuck in that position, so they can kind of they're
Yeah, which
soft.
can be good, but also bad, and it can
Yeah,
go, yeah, kind of both ways.
it really depends.
But this
Uh,
your Storm series is the one with the crazy, crazy clustering.
yeah,
How many of those clusters do you install usually?
I do 12 of those. I do six, two rows of six, and
Okay,
they're
and
offset.
shifted.
Yeah, I actually have one here. We can. This is the second 24-inch that I've made, but you can
Nice.
see how they're offset from each other.
I can see. Yeah,
Six in the middle, and then in between those, there's the six on the other sides. And
and
so that's kind of what I would want to go for with the hi hat because it has that
nice.
flexibility that even when they're warped, they'll still force into each other. And I've had pretty good experiences with that idea in the past because it almost, in a way, when it acts like a way, the with hi hat stands, they have that little screw in the bottom where you can angle one so
Yeah,
they do that and push
yeah,
the air out so you get a louder sound. These hi hats kind of do that naturally because they're warped. So they touch, and then just naturally from their shape,
Yeah.
they're pushing air out of one final spot that's the last place to close. So you get that kind of projection without having to mess with the thing on the bottom. So I mean, I, it's a cool idea.
Yeah. And those clusters are all from underneath?
Yep, all from the bottom to loosen everything off.
Ah, this is why they kind of warp.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
done. I did a couple of cymbals really early on, like trash crashes and stuff that had like bigger, not as big as those, but clusters from the top,
Hmm.
and made it like really loud and really wild and really kind of crazy sounding. I like the clusters to have a mellowing effect as well as the trash instead of a harshening effect when you do it from the
Yeah.
top.
Ah,
But
all right.
if you're doing like a rock crash and like a metal crash kind of thing, then that sound is awesome. But
Ah, okay. I did only one cymbal like this, a 20-inch
mhm.
with some clusters in one ring from the top. And what I liked about it was like it had a normal shape, all medium, all normal, but these heavy clusters, and it made the cymbal sound like a china almost,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
a kind of trashy and sharpness that I I've never heard before, and
yeah,
I laced it thinner and thinner over time. Every time I revisited it, I took a little bit more weight off to make it not as crazy. And finally, it landed on a pretty nice spot, but wild, very wild.
yeah.
Yeah,
Why a lot of China's, especially like the Zildjian Pangs, like the old A and the swish knockers and stuff like that, they were super thin because the
mm.
provides so much tightness,
Sta
harsh.
stability. Mm.
Yeah, if they're too heavy, they get way too harsh. But yeah, that's kind of the sound that I'm going for with these two. It's like halfway between. It's like you have the trash of a swish, but you have the playability and flexibility of a ride.
Yeah,
A little bit of both.
cool,
Yeah.
nice.
But
Yeah,
but yeah, I liked your ideas about the hi hats, man. That's I feel pretty much the same way. Except for me, I usually do taper my hi hats. That's the
yeah.
only the only
I
thing.
I did it also, and maybe I will in the future. I had just these three. The last one I did, the one I showed in the videos, I decided not to do it,
Right.
and I'll keep not doing it probably for a while. But maybe I'll come back to
Yeah.
tapering them in the further future.
It
Yeah,
makes a big difference on the sound when you have like that's the point of contact. So the thickness or thinness of that has the same kind of um, effect on the sound as would the thickness or thinness of cymbal
mm,
on the stick definition of a ride
mm,
cymbal.
yeah,
So you get a woodier, softer sound when they're thinner, but it's
yes,
sometimes like that's the beauty of it. If you want to have it's all having the balance. If you want to have a hi hats that are fairly thin, but they don't disappear in the mix,
mm,
you can make them thin, but you take as little weight off the edge as possible, and you'll still have a crispy kind of quality to them. And this
mm,
same is true if you want heavier hi hats that are softer and a little bit more warm in the mix. You can start off with really heavy blank and just really heavily taper them.
yeah,
So edge is behaving like a thin hi hat would, but you still have the projection and volume of the rest of the brightness of the rest of the cymbal.
yeah, yeah, right. How about not tapering the bottom, but tapering the top only?
Yeah, yeah, that's another way to get that balance.
Yeah, I never did that, but that could be nice.
Yeah, yeah, because it depends on the stick response that you want from them too. If you have
Mm,
like a medium top and a heavy bottom, or like a thin top and a heavier bottom, something like that, it's kind of the orientation, the way you put them doesn't really affect your stick definition because it's like clapping your hands.
yeah,
does it matter if you clap like this or like it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But the
good
stick
point.
is going to be the thing that changes. So if you play with the heavier hat on top, if you want a brighter, more clean kind of sound on the stick,
Mm,
or if you want to really be able to crash out on the hi
yeah,
hat easily, you put the thinner one on top, but the chick is still the same. So there's a lot of places to experiment with that, and we've
yeah,
been taught our whole lives that the heavier hi hat goes on the bottom, and that just is the way it is. But
yeah. Doesn't have to.
no, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. But this kind of goes back to the topic of basics that we try to
Yeah,
address.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Like
Circle.
within this, within all of these parameters, and when you finally landed on something that makes sense or sound good, one option that I feel I have is to stick with that.
Mm,
I'm not sure why exactly the cymbal sounds like it sounds.
yeah,
I have my guesses, but the way all those parameters sit and feed into each other, it's very hard to pinpoint
yeah,
why exactly the cymbal sounds like that. But if something starts to work, I tend to kind of keep it in my arsenal of tools, still changing other parameters, and then eventually come back to one certain parameter when I figure, okay, this is not done, this is not sitting well, or something like that.
yeah,
But this was a very yeah, simple smithing can it's so wild and fun and but also crazy. I remember like when I made my first cymbal that I was really I thought, okay, this is really nice. And instantly I was shocked. And because I knew I don't know why. I didn't know why it sounded. I could remember all the steps I
yeah,
did, but not how I was basically addressing each individual parameter. Um, and also, we forget. I mean, you make three other symbols, and will you still remember it? You could draw or write something down. But I also tend to just go with the flow every now and then and trust my instincts. But in the beginning, the instincts are just mostly wrong.
yeah.
This is what I found. It would be probably better to every single time you have like a feeling, just go the other way.
I feel that way all the time. Like
Yeah.
my instinct is always wrong. Just go the opposite way. And it's always the remembering thing is I have a terrible memory, so it's always tough for me to like I make a symbol that I really liked. I'm like, oh damn, what did I do to this one to make it this way?
Yes.
You're starting from scratch almost every time.
Yeah. It's hard to accept, but I think in accepting it lies like some kind of freedom or peace of mind at least. This is how it goes, and maybe in 10 years I'll have some better grasp on individual parameters. But
Oh yeah,
let's see, and
yeah,
we'll talk again. I
yeah.
just
I'll see you in 10 years.
yeah, hopefully sooner.
Yeah.
I just got another message. Our time seems to running out. 7 minutes to go. This is the free plan of Zoom.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how can we wrap this up? I think it was fun.
I mean, I think that was a pretty good place to wrap, talking about how we're constantly experimenting and just kind of keeping a mental note of the things that work and the things that,
Mm,
and then every cymbalsmith kind of eventually winds up at something approximating their process,
yeah,
and that's what makes everyone that's what makes everyone sound a little bit different, which is fantastic. Like we're kind of a lot of us are going for the same kind of general goal of just a sweet
Mm,
sounding kind of jazz ride cymbal. But the simplest little things that make the difference, like me, I when I make a hand form bell, I hammer the top and you don't, and
mm,
that it's not necessarily the one's right or wrong. It's like somebody might be listening to both of our cymbals and think, man, there's something I like both of these, but there's something about Marco's that is really drawing me into it that doesn't sound like anything else I've ever heard.
mm.
And it might be something as simple as the fact that you didn't hammer the top of your hand form bell.
Yeah, but it
So
could be 100 other things
yeah,
as
exactly.
well.
And that's why you
Yeah.
don't need to get too much into your head about all that stuff. Just try your best with what you've done to make a good cymbal. And the beauty of what we do, it's not like we have to completely hone in on a really, really tight and unchangeable process. We're not
Mm.
making something that we put on Amazon and it has to be exactly the same and try to get as many people to buy it as possible. Every time you make a cymbal, you only need one person out of 8 billion people on planet Earth to like it enough to buy it.
Yes.
And that gives me a lot of comfort knowing that even if the cymbal isn't exactly what I wanted it to be, someone out there is going to go, man, I don't know what
Yeah.
it is about that one, but I've never heard anything like that, and I need to buy it. So
Nice.
that's the beauty of what we do, is the fact
True.
we really get to experiment and we get to develop our own sound. And there's many people out there. There's millions and millions and millions of drummers in the world, and there are so many of them that hear cymbals almost exactly like you do. So when
Mm,
you reach something that's like, man, this is really good, there are millions of people out there who are also thinking, man, that does sound really, really good.
mm.
So it's we just have to kind of take it as it is,
Yeah.
and try to
Keep,
provide the service the best that we can.
yeah. Keep the calm
Yeah, yeah,
and trust our instincts, although they are wrong all the
yeah.
time.
Man,
Yes.
that happens to me when I'm driving and I'm thinking like, okay, there's a little bit of traffic on the highway. Maybe I should get off
Mm,
and try to go around it. No matter what decision I make, the world shifts around me to make it work.
yeah.
Like, I don't understand how it works, but that's just how it always. So whatever your instinct is, just do the opposite, and it'll probably.
Yeah. Right. Let's do that.
Yeah. It's
Okay. It was a pleasure. Thanks for doing this.
always, man. Always.
And yeah, let's talk soon.
Yeah, definitely.